Welcome to my books and story time by mybooksummary.com. Let's explore. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. The world had changed. Long ago, wars had raged, diseases had wiped out millions, and people had struggled under the burden of uncertainty, fear, and heartbreak. But now all of that was gone. The past had been erased, replaced by something far more efficient, far more controlled, a world without chaos, without pain, without suffering. A world where stability was everything. It was the year EF 632, after Ford, named after the great industrialist Henry Ford, whose principles of mass production had inspired the very foundation of this civilization. Cities gleamed under an endless blue sky, towering buildings stretching toward the heavens, each one humming with the rhythm of progress. Society had been perfected. There were no families anymore, no messy relationships, no unexpected births or unpredictable emotions. Instead, human beings were created in the hatchery and conditioning center, where embryos were carefully engineered, their fates determined before they ever took their first breath. The process was seamless. No mothers, no fathers, just science. Inside the hatchery, rows of glass tubes shimmered under the sterile lights, each containing the seeds of the future. The director of the facility, a man with a sharp face and an air of authority, walked between the rows of unborn citizens, explaining to a group of young students how the world worked. "This," he said, gesturing at the neatly arranged embryos, "is progress. This is stability." Through a technique called Bokanovsky's process, a single embryo could be split into dozens, sometimes even hundreds, of identical individuals. These clones, perfectly designed for their purpose, would fill the world's needs without question. Society was organized into a rigid caste system. Alphas, the leaders and intellectuals, were tall, strong, and gifted. Betas, slightly less remarkable, handled skilled work. Gammas and deltas performed the practical tasks of society. And at the very bottom, the epsilons, bred to be unintelligent and unquestioning, labored tirelessly in the background. To ensure that each person loved their place in society, conditioning began in infancy. Babies were subjected to subtle electric shocks if they reached for a book, so they would grow to hate learning. Others were exposed to loud noises when they saw flowers, so they would never desire nature. Every night, as they slept, gentle voices whispered in their ears, repeating the same mantras over and over. Everyone belongs to everyone else. A gram of Soma keeps the sadness away. Happiness is stability. By the time they reached adulthood, they no longer questioned these ideas. They simply believed them. And so, life went on in the brave new world, smooth and predictable. People never felt sorrow, for sorrow had been eliminated. If ever they did, there was Soma, a small, perfect pill that could wash away any discomfort in an instant. No need for thought, no need for struggle, no need for meaning. But not everyone was satisfied. A man apart. Bernard Marx was different, and he knew it. Though he was an alpha, he did not look the part. He was shorter than the others, weaker, and lacked the commanding presence that was expected of someone in his caste. His appearance made him insecure, and his insecurity made him angry. While others found joy in the distractions of the world, endless entertainment, casual pleasure, and the perfect comfort of Soma, Bernard longed for something more. He despised the meaningless chatter, the hollow laughter of his peers. While they were content with fleeting pleasure, he yearned for depth. He wanted to feel something real, something raw. But in a world where everyone was happy, his dissatisfaction made him an outsider. Even Lenina Crown, a beautiful beta whom Bernard admired, found his behavior strange. She was perfectly conditioned, perfectly happy. She enjoyed the casual relationships society encouraged, the parties, the luxury, the pleasure. When Bernard asked her to spend time with him in a way that went beyond the superficial, she was puzzled. "Why do you always want to be alone?" she asked one evening, tilting her head as they walked along the glowing streets of the city. "It's so odd, Bernard. You should take some Soma." But Bernard didn't want Soma. He didn't want numbness. He wanted something he couldn't quite define, something he had never been taught to name. One day, in a desperate attempt to prove himself, he arranged for a trip to the Savage Reservation, a place far from the carefully controlled perfection of the world state. It was a place where real emotions, real suffering still existed, A place where people aged, where they felt pain, where they believed in things that had long since been erased from civilization. The savage and the civilized. The reservation was unlike anything Bernard had ever seen. The air was dry, filled with dust and the scent of earth. The people here did not glide through life in a Soma-induced haze. They struggled, they loved, they fought, they cried. And it was here that Bernard met John. John was an anomaly. His skin was pale, unlike the others in the reservation, and his speech was filled with strange poetic phrases, words from a long-forgotten past. He was the son of a woman named Linda, who had once belonged to the world state, but had been left behind. Linda was now old and worn, a shocking sight to Bernard and Lenina, who had never seen age before. In their world, people did not grow old. They simply disappeared when they were no longer useful. John had grown up as an outsider. The people of the reservation did not accept him, and neither did the world he had never seen. The world his mother spoke of with longing and regret. His only comfort had been Shakespeare, the words of the old playwright becoming his guide to life, love, and honor. "Is this brave new world truly wonderful?" John asked, quoting from The Tempest. His eyes burned with hope, with the belief that there was something beyond the harshness of the reservation. Bernard saw an opportunity. If he brought John back to London, he would finally have something no one else had: a curiosity, a spectacle. People would have to take him seriously. John agreed. He longed to see the world he had heard about all his life. He believed in its beauty, in its promise. But he did not yet understand what awaited him. The tragedy of the savage. London greeted John as an object of fascination. He was a novelty, a spectacle, a toy for the elite to marvel at. They did not see him as a man with hopes and dreams. They saw him as entertainment. John was horrified by what he found. This was not the world of honor and love he had imagined. It was a world where nothing had meaning. Relationships were empty, emotions were shallow, and pleasure was endless but unsatisfying. When he met Lenina again, he fell hopelessly in love with her, believing that love was something sacred, something profound. But to Lenina, love was meaningless. When she tried to seduce him, expecting nothing more than another fleeting moment of pleasure, John recoiled in horror. "You are not worthy of love," he whispered, his voice filled with despair. His disillusionment deepened when his mother, Linda, died alone in a hospital, surrounded by people too numb to care. His grief meant nothing to them. There was no sadness, no mourning, only Soma, and the endless pursuit of distraction. Filled with rage, John tried to wake the people from their stupor. He threw away their Soma, shouting at them to see the truth, to fight for something real. But they did not listen. They only grew afraid. The government intervened, and John, Bernard, and another dissenter, Helmholtz Watson, were arrested. A choice between happiness and freedom. In the end, John confronted the world controller Mustafa Mond. "Why do you keep people like this?" John demanded. "Why do you rob them of love, of struggle, of meaning?" "Because," Mond said calmly, "stability is more important than freedom." John realized, too late, that in this world, true humanity had been sacrificed for comfort. Broken, he fled. He sought refuge in the wilderness, trying to cleanse himself, to escape the corruption of civilization. But the world would not leave him alone. Crowds gathered, watching him as if he were still just a curiosity. And one day, overwhelmed by the weight of his despair, John could take no more. When the sun rose the next morning, the savage was gone, and the world continued unchanged. Stay tuned for more enlightening content. Head over to www.mybooksummary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share the magic with friends. And let's grow together through the power of books and interesting stories.